Hello, this is Sharad Kumar. Today we are going to discuss about the concept of sustainability, and to study that we had made a critical analysis on topic biodiversity and sustainability development, and also we have a clear study of the two aspects, the biodiversity and its external and internal factors, how they contribute sustainability. Now, coming to the contents, now we'll be having a detailed look about the abstract, which is generally what's the entire concept of these topic will be covered in this abstract. Next comes to the role of sustainability in the fields of marketing and management, and also the sustainability factor will be briefly studied in this point. Next comes to the introductions to the biodiversity and sustainable development. Generally, we'll be knowing about each term clearly. Next comes the interrelation of biodiversity and sustainability, which is the relation between the biodiversity and sustainability, and how each of them are interdependent on each other. Then next comes to the loss of biodiversity, and in this concept general terms where actually how the biodiversity is affected is explained. Next comes to the consequences for biodiversity extinction, where actually in this concept the main reasons why the biodiversity is going to be extincted in the future will be explained. Next comes to the part of conservation of biodiversity, and this we can clearly study how we can conserve the biodiversity with some of the new innovative ideas and technology. And then thereafter comes the three things: the existing policies and what are the things which the biodiversity is existing on. And next comes the future perspective. That means how the biodiversity is going to affect the sustainability in the future. And then last comes the conclusion part. Thank you. Now coming to the abstract. In the recent decades, we have observed that there is a huge increase in the population, and which led to the remarkable changes to existing ecosystems. That is, there was drastic changes in the ecosystem, and this made few of the things to grow abnormally, and there was a huge demand growing in the market for fresh water, food, and fiber and energy material. The nature ability to deliver key services has been weakened. That is, in the nature to produce the natural things, the nature has loosened its strength to produce them because of several reasons. And along with that, the improvement in the quality of life for billions of people has also been weakened. So, based upon the nature's weakness to produce the natural things, has affected a lot of people in today's world. The article analyzes how the changes to natural ecosystems influence both climate changes and people's ability to cope up with some of its damaging impacts. That is, it clearly explains that how the natural system affect the human life, and how the climate and some of the factors which are affected by the abnormal ecosystem survives in the today's world, and it also the consequences are clearly explained. Thank you. Now let us discuss about the role of sustainability in marketing and management. And the sustainability is one of the key concepts entering the market. It emphasizes to meet the needs of present generation without compromising the integrity and stability of the natural systems, and compromising the potential of future generations to encounter their own needs, which is actually getting the output without compromising the existing or which affects the future generations, is the sustainability. And to know more better about the sustainability, let us know about the sustainable development. This can be explained by the 5P concept. P stands for the people, prosperity, peace, partnership, and the planet. And each of the P is interlinked to the other P, that is in the P. Sustainability development makes a contribution for the people development by removing the hunger, and they're treated equally, and which brings the prosperity when they are considered with no rationality and other forms. And these two factors contribute to the peace, where people live happily and people acquire all the economic resources. And the other two are the partnership and planet. This partnership is nothing but to contribute to more sustainability. People create innovative ideas to produce a better product, which produce a better product contributing the sustainability is partnership. And these all four aspects used to the planet growth, or the which looks a green planet. And these are about the sustainable development, and it's also about consuming differently and efficiently. Now coming to the concept of sustainability management cycle, where the marketing management is organizational discipline which focus on practical application of marketing orientation. This part generally in new techniques and methods which enterprises and organizations and on management firm marketing resources and activities are discussed.
Hello, I'm Likita, and I would like to continue about the introduction part. Mainly, we're coming to the diversity, biodiversity. Firstly, what is biodiversity? Biodiversity is mainly derived from two terms, that is the bio and the diversity. Bio means the life, and while coming to the diversity, it is variation. Totally, it is biodiversity, which is also known as biological diversity, which is generally refers to the variety and variability of life on Earth. It is a difference between the different species on the Earth. It is also defined as the variability among living organisms and the existence of a wide range of flora and fauna, that is, of plants and animals, from different sources like terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems and the ecological complexes. This may include even diversity within the species, between the species, and many ecosystems as well. Biodiversity is mainly of three types, that is, a genetic variation, ecosystem biodiversity, whereas the species biodiversity. Well, coming to the genetic variation is nothing but the variations among the populations on the Earth. And the ecosystem variations is mainly is defined as the variation among the two ecosystems. And while coming to the species variation, it is a variation among the species. On the ecosystem dimension of biodiversity, there is already a high degradation. The natural existence of the species was in large number in the past, but the current extinction rate is estimated to be approximately 100 times higher than the base rates which is found in the past. If this is going to happen, if this is going to continue, this will affect our ecosystem so badly that there will be an increase to almost 1,000 to 10,000 times higher in the course of time. And we're coming to the sustainable development. Sustainable development is the integration of economic, social, and as well as environmental development considered as the interdependent and mutually reinforcing pillars which operate at the local, national, regional, and global levels. Sustainable development will result from the interactions of three major interacting elements, that is the technology, natural resource base, socio-economic elements. To attain sustainable development, these three major elements must work in a symbiotic and complementary manner so that the goods and services generated by the interactions of technology and the resource base which are needed by human society are produced sustainably. And while coming to the sustainable development, it can be done by developing the ecotourism and the regional development. To develop the ecotourism, the main factors to be considered are the social, economic, and the environmental factors. Well, coming to the regional development, there are many factors such as the public policies and initiatives for the development of the society, and to preserve the conservation and to maintain the ecosystems and improve the lifestyle as well. And the main challenges for the sustainable development are the energy crisis, climatic changes, food insecurity, and the loss of biodiversity, and the interrelation of biodiversity and sustainability. The sustainability and the biodiversity are the two terms which are always interrelated to each other. Biodiversity has an important role in economic sectors that drive development and interacts with the technology and socio-economic dimensions. If biodiversity is well managed, such that its structure and functional relationships are kept intact, then a more sustainable pathway for economic development could likely be attained. Biodiversity mainly contributes to the goods and services such as the natural products even it even builds a sustainable development in many important ways by contributing for the diminishing of the poverty, and it mainly includes the production of the different products such as the food, medicines and materials for industry, which contributes for the livelihood of the people. And the structure and functional relations of the biodiversity should be well managed such that the sustainable pathway for economic development can be attained. Biodiversity mainly supports the ecosystem functions essential for the life on earth, such as the provision of the fresh water, soil conservation and the climate stability. It even produces products for the industry and for the livelihood of the people. That's the reason biodiversity is the heart of many cultural values. In total, biodiversity is the life insurance for the sustainable development. Technologies that must be developed or used to utilize the natural resource base must not only be economically viable but also be eco-friendly, that is, environmentally friendly. As there is increase in the population these days, the resources are used in a large volume, which is replenishing the resources available and it's being the threat to the biodiversity. And every one of us, like the producers and the consumers, has to take care such that everyone should use the products in effective manner and in a controllable manner, such that there will be the sustainable way of consuming the products and thereby contributing to the sustainable development.
Hello, this is Jyotirmay, and I'm going to continue about loss of biodiversity. In the recent decades, there is a heavy growth of the population, which is resulting in the destruction and use of the resources, which is leading to the heavy loss of biodiversity. There's a habitat destruction, overexploitation, pollution, and species introduction, which are causing natural calamities like droughts, cyclones, and floods, and all these becoming the major causes for the loss of biodiversity. Mainly the habitat destruction and the fragmentation of large contagious population into isolated, small, and scattered ones has been increasingly vulnerable to the inbreeding depression, high infant mortality, and susceptibility to environmental and possibly it is leading to the extinction. Biodiversity conservation is also impeded by a lack of knowledge of causes and rates of deforestation and biodiversity loss at the ecosystem and landscape level. Mainly, the threat to the extinction is like 1 out of 8 bird species and 1 out of 4 mammal species and 1 out of 4 coniferous species are threatened with extinction. Major threats to biodiversity, there's no recognition of importance remains an overriding threat to conservation initiatives. The following are agreed to the major threats, which results are uncontrolled commercial exploitation of natural resources, habitat destruction, including destruction of forests, reclamation of wetlands, extinction of high input agricultures, conversion of rich biodiversity sites for human settlement and industrial development, destruction of coastal areas. Consequences for biodiversity extinction. The rate of species extinction appears to be 100 times the background rate. Generally, in the graph, we can see that marine species and mammals in the distant past were below the fossil record. For every 1,000 mammal species, less than one went extinct every millennium. When we can, in the recent past known extinctions, we can see that mammals, birds, and even amphibians are included in the extinction thing, which is current extinction rate is up to 1,000 times higher than the fossil record. If this is the rate, then if this is gonna continue, then in the future, all the species, all the mammals, and all the amphibians will be going to extinction, which is a very major threat to biodiversity, and this has to be eradicated immediately, or else this wanna be a major threat to biodiversity, or else, and this can only be done by using all the resources in a sustainable way. Extinctions can disrupt vital ecological processes such as pollination, seed dispersal, leading to cascading losses, ecosystem collapse, and a higher extinction rate overall. The new study, headed by a biologist at the University of California, found that species extinction will reduce nature's ability to maintain ecological balance, and services such as water filtration, nutrient cycling, and pollination. Conservation of biodiversity. Biodiversity conservation is unlike any other sustainable development issue because loss of biodiversity is irreversible. Extinction is final and there is no second chance. Earth's resources are finite and there are ecological limits to growth which, unless we alter our ways, will sooner rather than later be exhausted. It is useful and indeed necessary to remind ourselves that a healthy human environment depends entirely on biodiversity. The greatest challenge facing humanity is to either curb unrealistic expectations and bring overused resources back to sustainable limits, or find alternatives for these resources. Biological diversity has to be used in a sustainable manner, otherwise, it would result in degrading environments. Biodiversity conservation can be done by two types. One is in situ and the other is ex situ. In situ conservation is conserving in a protected area network, whereas ex situ is conserving in outside areas. In situ conservation, that is protecting in inside area networks, can be include sacred groves and lakes, and biosphere reserves, and national park wildlife sanctuaries. The biosphere reserves may be of terrestrial or marine. While coming to the ex situ conservation, they can be include sacred plant home gardens or seed bank, field gene banks, and cryopreservations. It can also include botanical gardens, zoological gardens, and aquaria. Over the last few decades, biodiversity importance has become one of the top priority environmental issues for all the countries, mainly United Nations, and this very fact has pushed them to come up with measures like International Year of Biodiversity in order to save the environment, as this is the crucial stage in Earth's history, a time when humanity must choose its future.
This is Vishnupriya, and I'll be continuing with existing policies. There are many international and national policies which have been done for convention on for preserving the biodiversity. The major one being Convention on Biological Diversity, which was signed on 5th June 1992. It is located at Rio de Janeiro. It has 168 signatories, and it is a multilateral treaty. It has three major goals. The first one being conservation of biodiversity, the second being sustainable use of its components, the third one being fair and equitable sharing of benefits from the genetic resources. The other two acts are basically from India. The first one being Wildlife Protection Act, enacted in 1972, and the second one being Biological Diversity Act, which was enacted in 2002. This act was enacted to meet the obligations under the Convention of Biological Diversity, as India is a party to it. There are various other constitutional provisions which are both national and international. There are many other examples like National Tiger Conservation Authority, and there are a lot of national parks which have been coming up in recent years, which have provided provided a lot to the conservation of biological species. But from my point of view, I feel that this conservation is limited to major wildlife species, and species such as minor ones like plants, insects, and even habitats are being ignored. Thus, and moreover, the financial allotment for conservation of the biodiversity is also very limited, not only in India but in various other countries. I feel that more importance should be given on conservation, as this is a major threat to human life as well. In looking at the future prospective, we can see that until now there has been various debates, and we eventually found out and come to the conclusion that the loss has been very intense, and whatever needs to be done very quickly, and a drastic change needs to happen to reverse all that which we've done. And even it's impression that we would be able to reverse everything. But even though changes are happening on conservation, but the question remains: are they effective? Unfortunately, they are not. There are many complications which are coming. As human beings are very complicated, the proper protection of conservation is not kept in the minds of the people, the companies, as well as the governments. There are even talks of making the coal industry come in again. These kinds of information seriously provides a threat to our biodiversity, as almost we are in the edge of extinction. And then even now people fail to understand the importance of conservation. I feel that there should be more education towards people and all communities on the importance of conservation as soon as possible. Coming to the conclusion, for human people to survive, the conservation of biodiversity is very important, and the main focus should be on this. And for this, the unity of each and every one is important. There is a very critical moment in the history of human life, and these questions are unity. I feel that the policies which have been enacted are not enough, and there should be much more stronger policies which provide much more strict regulations, and the educational reach must be wide. And go to each and every person, so that they would contribute to the conservation. And this can be only done when the consumers stand united for the conservation, and the manufacturers and the government will then change as they would do what the consumers would want to. And we should not be affected by the marketing and the other strategies which they do, and we should open our mind and look forward to doing what is good for the humans and the earth. And to do this, they must design policies and which tackle both pressures, and it drives behind, which also enhances the progress of the sustainable development, and in turn sustainability and biodiversity. And this is what we would want to achieve, so that there is good marketing and also sustainability of the environment.